There's a agent who's always like, I want to close 100 units. I'm thinking, why? Like, do you really just want to serve 100 different people this
Mhm.
year? Or is that a volume thing? Because if it's a volume thing, I want to help 35 clients really well. Hi, I'm Meg Heritage, and this is the Positivity and Practice podcast. And today we are here with my sweet friend, Kristen. What's your title?
I'm a founder and executive leadership coach.
Of the Mindset Engineer.
Right.
Yes, and I'm so excited to be here with you today for a lot of reasons. You're a mom, you are a philanthropist, and you lean into the community, and you had a corporate job and
I
made the
did.
decision to step away from that to build your own thing. So tell me a little bit more about the Mindset Engineer.
So the Mindset Engineer is a coaching and leadership practice that I started in 2023. I had done coaching in a corporate setting for
Mhm.
quite a while. And I have two little kids and family reasons, I decided to step away and start my own thing.
Yeah, and you did this in a big way. You did this for a very large corporation.
I did. I did. I was fortunate enough to work for some great corporations locally and even outside of Michigan. I worked for Caterpillar, started my career with
Oh, I
that.
didn't know
Oh,
that.
yeah, I did.
Okay.
That was amazing. And so I worked for some phenomenal organizations, but really just wanted the flexibility to be able to pick up my kids from school and ramp down in the summer and really go all in on coaching as well.
So one of my favorite clients of all time was general counsel. So in charge of all of the attorneys. His
Uh-huh.
name is Jim Buddha.
Okay.
He was an unbelievable man, just from a work ethic and a
Mm.
faith standpoint and all of that. So I love that Caterpillar piece of it. Once my son, when he was like 3, I found him in his bedroom with my phone saying a bebe elephant, trying to search up on Surrey baby elephants. And Jim Buddha was on the other line, like third in command at Caterpillar Corporation, I think at that point.
Uh-huh.
And Jim's response was to send him a Caterpillar truck for his
Oh my
sandbox.
gosh.
So I just think the world of that company.
It's amazing. Yeah, my son, when he was little, he, of course, loved excavators and track type tractors and all the things. And then I went from Caterpillar to the automotive industry.
Yeah.
And he was maybe like 3 years old. And he's like, hey, Mom, remember when you used to make cool like Caterpillar equipment and now you just make parts of cars?
Right.
So
So boring.
humbling.
A bumper from a
Uh,
bumper or from an excavator to a
hmm
bumper.
Which is still amazing. It's a great company. But, for my 3-year-old, he was like, that was way cooler, Mom.
So tell me about what it's like when you are making. So there's so much safety and security inside of
Hmm.
being in a corporate environment. At least I assume. I've never
Yep.
worked for a big corporate
Hmm.
company, but when I see my friends who, get the cell phone and get the insurance and have a consistent paycheck, what in you allowed you to bet on yourself?
Hmm. I mean, it was a big shift. It was a big shift for our family.
Mhm.
Praise God, my husband does have a
Yeah, you have a great
W-2 job.
husband.
Yeah, he's amazing.
So kind.
And I could not do it without him. So I was very fortunate that I had my husband's support and, I knew my kids were going to eat.
Right.
I knew we were going to pay our mortgage. So I was very fortunate to have that. I have my faith. I mean,
Yeah.
that was like such a huge component of it. I don't think I could have done it without just having faith in the Lord and just thinking, knowing that, okay, I'm going to pour into my family. This is really why I'm doing this. And blessing follows obedience.
Oof.
Um,
Love that. Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, even just from a mindset perspective, it was a huge shift for me going from I'm the director of this. My identity, I think, was very much wrapped up in my corporate roles and who I was there.
Mhm.
So stepping away from that and not having that, that was a big shift mentally.
How do you know that this is a God thing? How do you know that this is where so I always say, I believe you will be called before you're
Mhm.
qualified, right? Like
Mhm.
Moses, when he's like, listen, like you got the wrong guy.
Mhm.
I'm not a good person. How does God speak to you into that space?
Yeah, I think it was just how I get my clients, honestly. I stepped away from my corporate job in May of 2023.
Okay.
And I'm very type A, like, let's go. And I was very conscious that I could create a corporate environment for myself pretty easily.
Hmm.
And that's not what I wanted. So I took the summer. My husband's like, just chill out. Take the summer, be with the kids. We had an old school summer. It was awesome. And in that, I had a friend call me out of the blue in July and called me for something totally random, but he owns a company in Muskegon. And he was like, "Hey, what are you doing now?" And I was like, "Well, I'm with the kids." And he's like, and I said, "I'm going to start a coaching thing in the fall." I think I said thing. And he's like, "Well, tell me more about that." And honestly, I have no idea what I said or how that transpired, but he's like, "I want to talk to you and I want to hire you." And I mean, just in that moment, I was like, thank you, God. He called me for something totally different. He didn't even know that he was calling me for this. And he's ended up being one of my best clients. I'm still working with his company. And so I think in things like that, I just see the Lord showing up. And for my whole first year, I didn't have a website. I mean, and I still got clients and have been able to work with amazing people in the
Just
community.
word of mouth. So you weren't advertising, you weren't marketing.
No, not
Mm,
really. And I still don't. I mean, my coaches and mentors are like, you need to get out there more.
right.
And I agree. And I know that I do. But I'm like, I get my clients by God's grace.
Yeah.
And and I need to market.
So when you left corporate, you hadn't built a framework for what this coaching was going to look like. You hadn't built out your curriculum and what you were going to do.
No. I had honestly no idea what I was going to do.
So when you're in it right now with the mindset engineer, are you building the content that you're going to provide, the coaching that you're going to provide, the education, whatever we want to call it here? Are you building that specifically to the needs of the client?
I am
I love that.
largely. And so I go in and, like in that first conversation with my friend, I was like, "Why do you want to hire me?" And I could have just that really vulnerable conversation. He's like, "Well, my team struggles with direct communication, prioritization for themselves and their team,
Right.
being able to get projects past 80% and building a team culture." And I was like, "Oh, I can help you with that. That's no problem." And I think that a lot of organizations, they're like, "Oh, we struggle with communication or prioritization." And the reality is most organizations struggle with the same thing.
This is wild because this is truly, you and I both read a lot of books about
Mhm.
business and all of
Mhm.
that, but this is the like, I'm going to build it from the air. And there are so many people, I think, who have uh, like paralysis
Mhm.
because they're not ready and they feel not ready. And so I have always thought you're going to get called before you're qualified.
Mhm.
And then God won't call you to something that he won't equip you for, right? So as you
Right.
lean into that space, but what you're telling me is that through listening and engaging, not doing a one side, like one thing fits all, right? So
Mhm.
we're going to do this and then we're going to do this. So we're going to do all this to you.
Mhm.
You're talking about doing something for you that is specific to the holes that are being described. That's brilliant.
Right. Well, I don't know if it's brilliant, but I think I appreciate that.
Mm.
But it's also, I think I had the insight to know I might think these are really good ideas based off my corporate experience or, in my basement. But unless it's really addressing the needs of my clients, I don't know what that's going to look like. So I'm actually really glad that I didn't build my website initially to be like, I have all these ideas and all these things,
Mhm.
because my business does look very different than what I thought it was going to. But it's just having that, I think, ability to throw things out there. And I'm a recovering perfectionist. So this was
Yeah.
really hard for me to get started.
Right.
And I think one thing that really helped me just get started is, I had a friend who's an entrepreneur, and I'd been waffling on if I'm going to do my own thing or not. And he's like, "What's the worst that can happen?"
Right.
And it really came down to like, what if I fail? What if my children see me fail? And
Mm.
he's like, "So what? What a lesson that would be for them."
Yeah.
Like and I think at the end of the day, that's why I did it, because I have a daughter, and she
She's
was,
so
oh,
beautiful.
thank you. She's,
I didn't get the girl, so when I held her in the pool, I think that was the first day that
oh,
I met you.
yeah, she loves you. She loves
Love
strong
babies.
women, and she's so funny, and she always has. Now she's 7.
Oh,
And but I saw her, at 3, like mimicking me and dressing like me. And I just knew I wasn't showing up for her like how I wanted to.
yeah.
And I'm like, if I'm stressed out and in corporate, like, this is going to be your baseline. This is what you're
Mhm.
going to think is normal. And
Yeah.
I want you to know you can try whatever you want to do. Like, pick your path and see what happens, And I think just having that mindset of like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? It could fail. But then I also thought, what if it goes right?
Right, sure. What was the worst that happened?
I mean, I failed. It didn't work. And um I'm like, I can always get another corporate job.
Well, that's what went wrong in the corporate. What's the worst thing that happened inside of the entrepreneurial space when you built Mindset Engineer?
Oh, I mean, it's not easy.
Right?
I think entrepreneurship
Oh, no?
is not easy.
No, it's not easy?
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that's what people think. I mean, I saw you from the outside. I'm
Oof.
like, oh my gosh, her life is probably perfect. She's beautiful and, has a nice car and has the
Thank you.
business and all together. Your photos are amazing. But being able to have that conversation with you at lunch 2 years ago, and
Yeah.
you told me about the struggles starting, and you were just so real in what it was. And I think being willing just to work through the ups and downs of the entrepreneurship and stay in it and figure it out. I mean, that's what it is.
And I think I do that because I needed that and never got it. Like there were very few people who had hung their own shingle and
Mm-hmm.
tried this on their own. In those that had done it, for whatever reason, and I don't have any judgment or vulnerability or any of that. Like, but I have such a frustration when I hear a story about myself that isn't true. Like, my vehicle's a tax deduction. Let's be
Right.
honest. I never even
I
got to
get it.
drive it. I don't,
Mm-hmm.
they just said here during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
I ordered 3 cars. And for me, it was like horrifying that was going to be
Mm-hmm.
my vehicle. But people don't know that because I just don't value that, right? Like,
Right.
I'd rather buy a single mama house and get the tax deduction, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not how our broken universe
Mm-hmm.
works. I appreciated so much that you asked for help, and just for me to be able to tell my story. And I appreciate now that I can trust myself to tell the truth in a balanced way
Mm-hmm.
so that people aren't like, oh my gosh, that sounds awful. I don't want to do it, because
Mm-hmm.
there are so many blessings once you get past the throat punches.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes they're in the same day, too. It's
Oh,
like you
all the
have this blessing,
time.
and then this other thing happens. You're like, oh my gosh. And so I think it's just being able to navigate those highs and those lows and not get too high with the highs and too low with the lows, and just having the resilience to stay in it.
In constant gratitude that none of this is from me. I'm not in
Right.
control of it. It all comes from God. And it's my job to be Christ's hands to serve in, whatever section of real estate I'm working in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that part is something that we share, and you can't explain it to somebody who doesn't get it and just
Mm-hmm.
wants to work like a sales and selling, process, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. Yeah. So where where are you now, and then where are you going? Like, what do
Yeah.
you see in the future, and how can we as a body of listeners help you grow?
Oh, awesome. Great question. So now I've somewhat pivoted my business from when I started, I was doing leadership development,
Okay.
and really focused around that. But then I found a lot of the organizations, I think, lack clarity around priorities.
Uh-huh.
So if I'm doing leadership development and not in service of a particular goal, it's kind of hard to show ROI or like, why did the business hire me? Because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, I'm there to serve the business. I mean, not at all costs, not just, hey, burn out, work harder, but it's like, what are
Right.
tools and mindsets that might help continue to move towards your goals? And so in that, I'm pivoting more to do strategic planning and execution support at organizations
Okay.
and coaching and leadership development in service of that. So that's kind of where my business is now. And so I love working with organizations and supporting them either on creating their vision as to where they're going, and then really getting very granular and how do you get there? And what are we going to
Right.
do? And supporting them on either a monthly or quarterly basis to do that.
Okay.
So that's my business right now.
Who is your perfect client?
I work a lot in the manufacturing and engineering service space,
Okay.
because that's my background in
Sure.
engineering. I spent 20 years in manufacturing. So I think that that's a lot of the clients who gravitate towards me. But honestly, I've had clients who are blueberry farmers,
Love it.
and it was just an amazing opportunity. And so, I find that really, I love working with just local West Michigan organizations. So I'm not limited to manufacturing or engineering services, but that's a lot of what I work with right now.
I feel like it's such a interesting, even if you're a fantastic leader, I think that there are times that you can't be the person that solves the problems. Like you just need a third party, no
Hmm.
different than a mediator inside of a
Right.
business dissolution case or a divorce or that kind of
Hmm.
thing, where somebody just needs to come in as like an interventionist and listen in a different way. That's a
Yeah.
lot of what you're doing.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And, I just have a different perspective because they're in it every day.
Okay.
And sometimes you just can't see the forest through the trees. I was just doing a Q1 check in with a client, and we are talking a lot about Extreme Ownership by Jocko
Mm,
Willink.
yeah.
And, there are just certain questions I could ask or certain notices that I could say, have you considered? Or when you say that, what do you mean by that? And just slowing down a little bit. And we talked about his principle of, he needs to stay a strategic genius. So he has to be at a different, vantage point than the team. Like he can't solve all the problems with the team because then he has the same perspective as the team.
Right.
And I think that's what I can come in and offer my clients is I just have a different perspective. I'm not in it every day. And I'm fortunate enough that I get to see so many amazing, best practices and ideas at different organizations that I can kind of cross-pollinate and share
Yeah.
and, have conversations
Are
around.
you using Myers-Briggs or, an EOS or any of those in order to kind of figure out who you're dealing with and what their leadership style and personality traits are?
Yeah, I am a DISC certified
DISC. Okay. Yeah.
practitioner.
Okay.
So I like DISC because it's simple. And there's a lot of tools like online now that,
Yeah.
they can use to be able to compare and use even when I'm not there. So I do use DISC, but really it's about, refining for clarity.
Yeah.
And like, what does that mean? And how do you communicate it in a way that someone maybe 2 or 3 levels down, it drives their behavior like next Tuesday?
Yeah.
And not talking at a very high level, because I think a lot of the leaders, I mean, a lot of the executives that I'm working with are owners and they're operators, and they're very clear. It's very clear in their mind what they want and what success looks like.
Yeah.
But sometimes it doesn't always translate to the people on their teams. And so, yeah, just having someone as a third party who's not in it, be able to support some of those conversations and get clarity around that.
That was one we used DISC at
Oh,
Blue West in early, and I was amazed at how many places when I really looked at each individual team member where I was doing it wrong as a leader, where I could have done better,
mhm,
where I was saying something in a way that I thought made sense with people that I love and respect more than anything ever and have so
mhm,
much gratitude for, but was realizing when I'm saying this, you are probably hearing this. And
mhm,
what I want you to hear is something completely different.
mhm,
And I thought it was such a valuable tool for me to assess my own. Henry Cloud says, like, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And what is
mhm,
my role?
mhm.
I saw such exponential growth in our team members when I was capable of communicating at the style that they needed.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I think that's leadership summed up, right? In my disc workshops, I talk about a rubber band.
Yeah.
And it's like the rubber band's really not doing the work unless you're stretching. And I think that as a leader, if you can
Mhm.
meet people, where they're at and with their style and understanding what motivates them, which could be very different than you,
Yeah.
but still show up in a way authentic to you, but you can flex a little bit. I think as leaders, that makes such a huge impact on the teams.
Yeah, I do too. And I think we all need like a tool, right? To be
Mhm.
able, because it's not like how could I communicate with you better?
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, where do we go? It's so gray and it's so
Mhm.
out there. And, you're gonna get into situational things. Well, you said, blah, 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 blah,
Mhm.
blah, and I this, and we don't want to do that. We want to be in an overarching, how do we grow together so that I can continue to do whatever I can to make you more successful? Because at this point, their success is far more important to me than my own. Like,
Right.
I will always be able to do this as long as I continue to serve in a Christ centered way. I will
Mhm.
always sell real estate. I'm 1000% positive that I've got
Mhm.
some kind of reciprocal relationship with God where He's like, I will give you the client. You will do an amazing job with the client. You will make some money. You will give some of that money away to
Mhm.
nonprofits and people in need. And then rinse and repeat and
Mhm.
round will go. When you are looking at your next year or two, so manufacturing clients for
Mhm.
sure,
Mhm.
and it sounds like service industry people.
Yep.
What else? What else do you want? What do you see? Where do you really feel like you can lean in and help right now? Are you into retail? Or are you into what else?
That's kind of what I'm trying to figure out right now, to be very honest with you. My business has kept evolving in ways that's somewhat unexpected, even to me.
Yeah.
And I think that, there's two types of entrepreneurs. I think there's entrepreneurs who really are focused on making a boatload of money,
Right.
which, no judgment at all. And then there's other ones who are focused on the lifestyle. And right now, I'm very fortunate to be able to serve my clients and, work with them, and then also be able to pick up my kids from school
Yeah. Same.
and ramp down in the summer. So it's kind of an odd place to be because I love my business and I want to pour into it, but I feel like I have kind of one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas all at the same time.
Yeah. So that's about finding clients who uh, really work with what you're doing
Mhm.
and valuing yourself enough to not have your time wasted
Yeah.
in making sure that when you bring somebody on, you can give 100%
Yes.
of yourself to, their project, which might mean five. There's a agent who's always like, I want to close 100 units. I'm thinking, why? Like, do you
Mhm.
really just want to serve 100 different people this
Mhm.
year? Or is that a volume thing? Because if it's a volume thing, I want to help 35 clients really well.
Mhm.
And instead of selling, $200,000 houses, then I guess that means that I sell a $2 million house over here and a 250 and all of that. So I love the idea that you're already thinking about, how can this come together in a way where I make sure that I keep myself healed, healthy, and
Mhm.
whole, and I'm here for my family, and my original plan
Mhm.
is still in place. You were very strategic in that, which tells me So it was funny. I was assessing as you were strategically planning your life
Hmm.
and stepping away from corporate and being in this new space, you were actually showing me what you would do with a client,
Mm.
right? These are
Hmm.
the problems that I'm facing right
Yeah.
now. These are the ways that I feel that I'm going to be able to solve them. What does that look like for you? And did that work for you?
Yeah.
It was really neat because you were showing me that you were capable of doing it
Hmm.
because you were already so intentional about how you were going to do it for you.
Yeah, and I think that that's largely how keep iterating my life and
Mhm.
my business. And it's just, hey, I have this hypothesis. Might this work? And we'll test it. And
Right.
we'll see what works. We'll be clear on, hey, what is our expected outcome? What does success look like? And here's a couple things that we might do that I think would lead to that. And then we assess and we keep iterating and okay, how might it get better? How might it improve? And so I think really my ideal clients are someone who's maybe curious about what's next, or maybe they have a feeling they kind of know what their vision is, but haven't been able to articulate it.
Right.
So working with clients and organizations to be able to get clarity around where they're going in the next 3 to 5 years and being able to cast that vision to their team and motivate and excite their team around it. That's exciting for me.
So you're coming out of one of these clarity sessions essentially with maybe a 1, 3, and 5 year plan. And then
Mhm.
inside of that 1 year, you've got actionable items that you're going to work on in order to get to PYQ goals. And so it's really, I've always said this. Most entrepreneurs or people who are in leadership positions don't have the support that they really need. So it's
Mhm.
kind of lonely.
Yeah.
And for me, hiring coaches and having so many, I'm so blessed. Like I have amazing friends who are
Mhm.
in that space,
Mhm.
and a cousin who constantly can reset me as soon as am wanting to rock myself in a corner and have a poor me day.
Yeah.
But I think everyone should have someone like you
Mhm.
solely because we can't organize our thoughts.
Yeah.
We know what all of the things
Mhm.
are, but it's so incredibly difficult to whiteboard that out.
Mhm.
And so what I find is there's so many options and choices and different things that we could be doing that we end up in this space of we don't do any of them. We just
Yeah.
reanalyze and reanalyze and reanalyze. And it reminds me of like somebody throws, post-it notes up in the air and they're flying all over the place and like two stick, but you don't know if they're the right two.
Right.
That's what you're doing. That's what you're helping people do to get clarity on their next best move and getting to their goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, we all have our own blind spots and we all have our limiting beliefs that we count as true, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I need coaches and
Yeah.
I need mentors to support me in my business because I'm experiencing the same things.
Yep.
But I think just having that outside lens and perspective that can be like, "Hey, slow down a minute, Megan. Like when you said this, like I noticed your body language.
Right.
Like what were you experiencing there? Do you actually want to do this or do you think you should do this? Because those are two different things. And just being able to slow down and get clarity around what you actually want and where you want to go, I think is invaluable.
It is. And I think you don't even know that you need it until somebody asks. I was offered an opportunity recently and the person, it wasn't anything that I was even thinking about. And the person on the other side, really, really smart, wonderful human being, was like, well, what do you want? And I suddenly realized I was like negotiating with a toddler.
Mhm.
Like, do you want waffles? Do you want, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And so it was the first time that I had thought about, I know, it's not for me, it's not what is my why, it's who is my why. My sons and my
Mhm.
husband are my whole
Yeah.
life, and my family is everything to me, and my friends behind that.
Mhm.
And of course, God first. But it is such an interesting thing when you are just in that hamster wheel and you're running and running and running and producing and doing the things that you need to do for everybody else to get that high level view of what do you want?
Mhm.
Right. And I think
Mhm.
that this exhaustion and the economic turmoil that we're going through right now and all of those other things, there's never been more need for someone like you to come in and
Mhm.
offer up clarity so
Yeah.
that we can have joy and we can have space to be able to, dream and make sure
Mhm.
that we're not just checking everybody else's boxes, but we're also checking, our own boxes.
Right. Exactly. Because we don't drift towards clarity, or we don't drift
No.
towards our goals. We need to set those intentionally.
Right.
And actually, my husband and I just started doing strategic planning for our life.
Love it.
So I've been doing this with clients, and I had this revelation last summer. I'm like, I do this with my clients, but I haven't done this for my business.
Yeah.
So I went away, and I'm a solopreneur. So it was kind of an interesting process. But I developed actually some AI prompts to help me with
Sure.
brainstorming. And so I did this whole thing for my business, and I got a lot of clarity and focus from it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I came back to my husband and I just said, Adam, why are we not doing this for our life? Like, I can build this business. I'm confident that I can build this business to be honestly whatever I want it to be, right? With work and focus. But I'm like, if I'm not building it on the foundation of our life and our marriage and what our purpose and priorities are, then why do it? And so I think it's just as important to
Yeah.
have, almost more important to have a strategic plan for your life as it is for your business. So I just think it's so cool how it's so applicable in all areas.
It'll be interesting to see whether you feel like that's a service that's valuable to provide to families.
Yeah, actually I was going to test something in the fall with that, cuz usually third and fourth quarter is kind of the time. So to
Mm-hmm.
see if that's something that resonates. I mean, talking with a lot of my friends who are, they're executives, like they're running their families, they're running teams. They're like, "Can you share that with me?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course. Sure.
Yeah,
Let me
so
know."
I'm building something right now. I'll
Mhm.
talk to you about it later. But like in the B event, one of the things that I don't like is we all get together and we're in this 400, 500 people are
Mhm.
inside of the room, and then we all segment and we run away and we don't see each other again. And so
Mm.
thinking about a deeper dive into the 6 areas of life, like what do you really want your finances to look
Mhm.
like? What do you really want your relationships to look like? And then having accountability partners as we go through a year-long
Mhm.
program, kicking off with a one-day event. But what you just made me think was all of those things also need to align with if you have a partner,
Yeah.
right? Like it'd be so funny to be like, John, I filled out this workbook and this is what our life is going to
Right.
look like now, right?
Uh-huh.
So this sort of idea that okay, these are my plans, but how do we make sure that this aligns with like everybody's plans and maybe double
Yeah.
check before,
Right. Like,
you
"Hey, are
know,
you on board with this?" Or
right?
I know, because yeah, I think a lot of things are good ideas, and then I talk to my husband, he's like, Have you considered X, Y, and Z?" And
Oh
I'm like,
yeah.
"Good point."
John doesn't even respond anymore. I was going to buy Culver's one like 5, 10 years ago, whatever. I
Uh-huh.
was like, I think we should buy a Culver's. Like, first of all, I am generally like functionally nutrition, although I do end up there with my kids quite often and it's lovely. But I found out you have to work there for the first like 2 years, like
Mhm.
physically be in the store or a
Mhm.
year or something like that. And then I realized there's no way I could afford to buy Culver's unless I was, working in real estate.
Right.
And now I'll say something and he just doesn't even respond, right? Like he's
Uh-huh.
just like, and then 2 days later, I'm like, did you know that, you can't, or a core
Mhm.
life is $1 million and the
Mhm.
franchise fees are this and blah, blah, blah. And he's like,
Mhm.
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 Yeah.
Their
Mhm.
silence says everything. You're like, "Okay." Then you rethink it, and you're like, "Okay, maybe not."
I'll be
But
over here in the corner with my greatest new plan. And yeah, that's not going to happen.
mhm.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate so much that you're out there doing a business that can help people to live their highest and best life. That's
Mhm.
obviously just so incredibly important to me. And that you are looking at it from a standpoint of relation, not transaction. I think
Mhm.
that things will always sort better in the long
Mhm.
run when you are trying to, like, money's a byproduct of doing the right thing. If you do the
Mhm.
right thing enough, then money will come.
Mhm.
And how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I have a website now. I
Ah,
do.
2 years in and you've
Yeah,
got a website or
exactly. I do.
3?
I have a great website now. Thank you to my marketing team.
Love it.
But Yeah. So my website is themindseteng.com.
Okay.
So you can see more about my business or reach out on LinkedIn is probably where I'm the most active.
Okay.
So Kristen Kosidowski on LinkedIn. Or my email is kristen@themindseteng.com.
And then if people want to sit down with you, it's just sort of an original consultation to look at whether or not you're a good fit.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I start with a conversation in terms of, hey, what are your gaps? What are you noticing? Where do you want to be? And then we can sort it out from there. I don't come in with, I do have frameworks and programs and everything, but first I want to just talk to people and have a conversation.
Yeah.
And start there.
Make sure you're a good fit.
Right. And both ways.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you so much. I'm so glad that I got to meet you in a pool.
Yeah.
And that we've been friends now for a few years.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that I can do to support you always, I will 100% do that. If you are looking for organizational help inside of your business, if you're looking for strategic planning, if you're looking for, it sounds like maybe even life planning, which I like too, and need, just to get clarity inside of what you want to do as you progress forward in order to live your highest and best life, please contact our friend Kristen. If you have liked this podcast, please like and subscribe. We just made it to over 1,000 subscribers, which is really exciting. Thank you to Rediscover who helped us to do that. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.